Stéphane, welcome to the Maestro Online.
Welcome, Robin, to Lucerne, I would say, and to the inside of the Hofkirche.
This is my first time in Lucerne and in this wonderful church. So, how did your musical journey begin? Have you been musically inspired from a very young age?
I would say maybe I was quite lucky because both of my parents were musicians. My dad is an organist himself, and my mother was always playing the piano and teaching the piano. But unfortunately, she was always thinking, "No, my son, you cannot have piano lesson with me. It's not gonna be fun for me."
Yeah,
So I had to find another way. And my dad was saying, "The organ, not with me. It's not a question. No, it's not possible. You have to play another instrument. The oboe. It's gonna suit you well." So I started with the oboe.
fantastic. So how did you then move from the oboe to the organ with your parents obviously inspiring you, but not wanting to cross the role of parent and teacher?
I just wanted it so much at a point because I was impressed by that monster, I would say, full of pipe, made of metal and wood. And you could improvise on it. You could do everything you want. You could play with your hand, you could play with your feet. And that was quite something. And I was playing the oboe in the orchestra, but at home I was always trying to play something on the piano or at the organ. And it all started like that. And after a few years, I was 12 years old, if I remember correctly. I started the organ with a different professor in the music academy.
Brilliant. Now your journey travel, were you destined for music always from that stage? Do you think that was inevitably going to be your career?
I wasn't sure at the beginning because I have to say it's quite difficult to be a musician these days.
Mm-hmm.
With the economical crisis and everything. But I was sticking to it. I was thinking maybe I should do some biology, chemical studies or something like that. And then no, it wouldn't be possible. I would miss something, I think. And I decided to embrace it, and to go to the music conservatory in Belgium first.
Okay, so you went to the Music Conservatory in Belgium. How did you find that? Did you find that a big challenge? Did you take to it like a duck to water, as we say, or was it a huge awakening?
Yeah, at the time it was quite impressive because you had to do an entrance exam, you had to succeed, and you have to be chosen. It was the case, luckily, and then I was discovering a whole new world, and with a lot of different matters: music theory, organ, piano, improvisation, church music as well, of course, because we are organists, we have to stick to that too. And everything was brand new, and it was very exciting at the time.
Okay. Now, of course, you didn't just stay in Belgium. You moved abroad.
Exactly. One day I decided to write a letter to Paris, and I wrote a letter to Pierre Pince-Maille in France. And I did it in the very old-fashioned way, like Pince-Maille did it maybe himself with Pierre Cochereau in France. And suddenly, one day, I do remember I was in my bed in Belgium. It was very early in the morning, and I received a text message on my cell phone. And it was saying in French, "See you tomorrow, Saint-Denis Cathedrals, Paris, 11 o'clock. Wow. Yours faithfully, Pierre Pince-Maille." I booked the first train available. And a day after, I was in Paris in front of the Saint-Denis Cathedral.
Wow.
And it was the beginning of a new journey, I would say.
Mm. So what was your Parisian journey like? Was it extremely disciplined? Was it extremely hard work?
It was with him, but he was very severe, I would say, very, very strong, but also careful. We were like a family with him, and the classes were lasting always 4, 5, 7 hours at home or at the Conservatory of Saint-Maur.
So what sort of things were you doing in those 4 or 5 hours? What sort of things were you covering?
It was always a very funny ritual, I would say. First, you receive a phone call with a choral team on the phone. And then you had 30 minutes, the time that Master Pince-Maille came to the conservatory. And 30 minutes later, you should write a 4-part choral harmonization. You had 30 minutes. And then after that, without a keyboard, of course.
Okay. Yes.
Without a keyboard.
Yes.
And after that, he was taking the copies and criticizing everything. That's good, that's not bad, could be better, do it like that. And it was our basis. It was the basic training. After that, we were starting to improvise. We were taking that material and starting to improvise 5 variations in the styles of Johann Sebastian Bach. A richer car, some ornamentation, some fugetto, some stretto. Everything was possible. A trio, of course, 3 voice. It was always the basic to do.
So when you when you first had to do that, was that something you had no idea where to start with? Were you kind of lost, or were you like, no, I can do this?
No, at the beginning you had no idea. You had no idea. You were there to learn, and you had to stick to it. And each week it was the same training, I would say.
So in between each week, you were grafting hard.
I would say that, yes, and searching a lot.
Yeah.
And suddenly, a few months after, it's clicking in your head. You cannot explain it. It's like working, and you have some pattern in your finger, some reflexes, and it's coming, and it's coming. And it's like learning a new language. I had to learn English. Maybe you have to learn another language. And music, it's always languages. The Romantic language, the Baroque language, the Neo-Symphonic, the Neoclassical language. And tools are simply language you have to learn and stick to it and to practice.
So did you only move on to later styles once you had grasped the concept of 4 or 5 part counterpoint, fugues and the Reisecars? Was it only then that you could graduate to, say, more romantic styles?
Yes, and in a funny way, I would say, for example, the French language, for example, from Pierre Cochereau, the well-known Pierre Cochereau, you are not learning it during your classes. You have to discover it by yourself. You have to hear everything, and you have to practice during a service, for example. And that's the way to learn. Just try. Take a dive into it. And about the Romantic language, yes, when you got a good and strong Baroque language, when you learn that, you can change the harmonic language and create other stuff with other variation, or understand how does the Mendelssohn music work, for example.
And it was only from there, presumably, that you get the more advanced harmonic language, and also you get this kind of symphonic concept of organ music.
Exactly.
So what would you say is your finest memory of tuition in Paris?
I had quite a lot to say. I had quite a lot. With Pince-Maille, it was definitely to be a sub-organist with other friends at the Symphony Cathedral a few years after, when you had enough trust of the master to replace him when he was playing concert or going on vacation. And it was quite an impressive moment to play that huge historical cavalier organ inside that cathedral. But also the classes later with Frere Jacques or with Yves about music theory or organ improvisation were also very, very impressive. Very impressive.
So how many years were you training in Paris for?
I made 2 years at the main conservatory of Saint-Maur-les-Fossés in the Paris suburbs with Pierre Pince-Maille, and after I made 2 intensive years at the main conservatory of Paris, CNSM, with Frere Jacques and Yves for organ improvisation and music theory as well. But I had also other professors on the side, like Isabelle Duas for harmony, or to learn the Romantic language at the piano, for example, or Jean-François Zigel for some improvisation, also on silent movie, for example.
Fantastic. So tell me now about moving on from there, because you've had a fantastic career in terms of organ competitions, for instance, and now you're in this wonderful location. How did your journey go from Paris beyond?
I mean, I think I'm from Belgium, and you know, Belgium, that's a small country, and we are taking a lot of influences from Britain, from France, and from Germany, because we are in the middle of all of it, and everything is so close, it's not so far, and we are taking all that influence. And my goal, my interest, it was also Germany, and I was studying also in Germany, in Stuttgart, and going to Paris, to Stuttgart, coming back to Paris, doing church music in Germany, doing organ improvisation in France. And that dual studies were quite interesting, to learn different school of music, of organ music in different way, how to play the organ.
I know you studied with the wonderful Ludger Lohmann, who I had.
Absolutely.
I had the great opportunity to perform in a masterclass to him once. Such a gentleman, but such a knowledgeable, wise man, as well as a very fine player.
Absolutely. Also very severe during classes, very cold blood, but you could learn absolutely a lot of things. And all the classes were always ending with a good white wine and a glass of it. But I think it's also very important sometimes, from time to time. And all that cultural bath, I would say, was I could learn a lot, and I could stick to it, and it was really helpful when I was applying for different organ competition, for example, like in Dudelange, in Dudelange, in Luxembourg, for example, or I tried also St. Albans in the UK, for example, and it was marvelous experiences and experiments to be there, to meet other people, to discover what are doing the other, not to compete, but to learn something out of it.
Yes. And to gain the experience, and
exactly.
and manage those performance situations. Of course, competition puts that pressure on. It raises the level of anxiety, and how you handle that. Has that been a big issue for you, or is it something that you've naturally coped well with?
No, it was quite stressful, especially with organ improvisation, because you're receiving a team, and then, am I able to do something? What should I do now? And it's only your experience talking then. You are on the moment, and all the experiences you had before, they are helping you to go through that moment when you have to do something.
So how have you managed that anxiety?
Simply practice a lot, and also during services. I think that the services, when you are playing as an organist, you have a lot of opportunity to practice the art of improvisation. We can receive some hints, you can improvise on it, and you can improve yourself.
Yes. So
it's like your laboratory, I would say, as an organist.
Yes.
It's a laboratory.
So your answer to managing anxiety is basically to put yourselves in situations often, so that it becomes a regular experience, and that it's all in the preparation. If you've done the preparation, then you're as up to the challenge as you can be, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. One professor of mine was always telling me, if you did everything you could do, then it's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
If not, you may struggle, but that's up to you.
Very good. So how did you end up in this fantastic church in Lucerne? I mean, the organ there is phenomenal, and it's quite well known. Tell us a little bit about how you came to this position and why this position is so special.
Well, it was simply a competition. I was one day in Germany, and I was reading in a Swiss paper, so the music jobs, and then suddenly organist. And you had a few churches available in Germany, and you had a very small chapter, Swiss opportunities. And I decided to apply. Who knows? Maybe I got a chance, maybe I don't. I don't know. But if I'm not trying, I will never know. And the whole contest was lasting 1 year. We were quite a lot of contestants. And I had to pass the first round, the second round, and the third round.
Wow.
And then at the end, surprisingly, I was appointed the new organist of the church, and I wasn't thinking about it. And I was coming to Lucerne with a mood, we will see. I'm gonna do my best, but we will see. If it's not here, it's where else. But let's give it a try.
So having competed for a year to get this position, that really tells us how special this organ is and this place is. What's special about it?
Well, Lucerne was always a special musical place. Now we have naturally the Kakel Philharmonic, the Philharmonic Hall. But if I'm going back in time, the first impressive thing about the main organ of Lucerne, called Hoforgel, it's the main central pipe of the organ, because it was a challenge. The organ was built in 1640 by the Austrian organ builder Geisler. And Geisler, that man, came to Lucerne with quite a crazy idea. I'm gonna build the biggest pipe in Europe ever made and put it in front on the main case of the organ. And he did succeed. And in front on the organ case, you can see the biggest pipe in Europe at the time, also now, with a weight around 400 kilos, a length of 10 meters, 18, that's quite huge, and large of 56 centimeters.
Wow.
So that's quite impressive. That's quite impressive. And the challenge was done, and the organ was well known, and it could asset the power of Lucerne, because Lucerne was a very important economical city at the time in 1640. Later, the organ was played by a very famous German composer who was living between the UK and Germany, and he was called Felix Mendelssohn Bartholdy, and we are in 1831. Unfortunately, there at the time, the organ wasn't really in a good shape, and we have to wait 1862 to have a very good restoration by the German organ builder Friedrich Haas from Baden-Baden. And then the organ was so famous that Aristide Cavaillé-Coll came from Paris to hear about that organ, copying a lot of things. If you hear well about the organ in Lucerne, we are having a rain machine in the roof, because Friedrich Haas built a part of the organ, of the new organ, into the roof, into the attic of the church. And it was quite impressive at the time. And that reputation did ground up. And a lot of composers had so many interests. Robert Schumann, Clara Schumann, Anton Bruckner, they all played the organ. And not to forget also, Richard Wagner was living in Lucerne for 6 years. So it does mean you had all the great German and Romantic composers from Europe. They were all coming and traveling to Lucerne. Wagner, of course, Cosima Liszt, the daughter of Liszt himself. They would get married with Wagner here in Lucerne, inside the Matthäus Church, not so far from the Hofkirche. And so you had like a musical playground with all the composers coming and discovering the cities. Later, you had also Rachmaninoff and Brahms coming, just to maybe to get inspired by the Swiss Alps. And that's the story of the Hof organ in Lucerne. Wow. And that German organ builder had crazy idea. He wanted to create a series, a concert series called Organ Storm, to advertise his work. And it worked so well, he could build other organ in the whole country of Switzerland, but also in Austria or in South Germany as well. So it was a commercial success story, a truly success story.
So almost it was that original builder that was ambitious with this largest pipe, that it inspired musicians, and that was almost the beginning of the journey, was the ambition. And the ambition of the builder in an economically successful region meant also the attraction of big name composers, and it meant investment to significant restorations to create what is such a fantastic organ.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And now, of course, Stéphane.
Yeah, we have to stick to it and to do our best.
You're doing fantastically. Thank you so much for sharing your life story and the life story of this wonderful organ and church. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Robin. My pleasure.